feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball advantage. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. Download that. It's free, and you can watch and listen to our program daily in its entirety, and always go back and check us out. If you happen to miss something, you can head to jbandgoldwatershow.com as well for much more information, and you can always follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is also our text line. It's open, and you can pop us a note there. You can always do it on any other platform as well. I see Bobby is watching us, it looks like, on Facebook. Hey, Bobby, you can do what he just did and what others will do as well throughout the afternoon. YouTube, any platform you're available, send us a note, and Darren will do what he just did for Mr. Patterson there and pop it up into our program. But starting at 12:30 and right on through 2 o'clock, we'll be pretty booked, as we generally are on Wednesdays. J.C. Shurburtt is back with his full hour of fun, 12:30 to 1:30. At 1:30, part 8, or episode 8, or whatever you want to call it, of It's Time for Carolina Football with Keith Allsep, the host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. I'm honoring, Darren, my commitment to him last week. Okay?
Okay. There it is.
I'm honoring my commitment. I told him I'd wear his shirt on our show. So he's supposed to be wearing our It's Time for Carolina Football shirt on today with us.
Well, and we'll have his logo on the screen because we'll have this up there too. So it'll be like almost his show when he's joining us.
That's right. Maybe he can handle some of the issues we have to handle all the time. maybe not.
Yeah, he can handle the message boards.
Yeah. Keith, you deal with the problems moving forward here that are started by J.C. Shurburtt, generally around 12:30. But that is all ahead. Gamecocks, of course, the news that's been out of their camp over the last 24 hours. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. We'll get more into it today. Is the addition of Zeb Nolan, who was a grad assistant. He's not. Look, there's a false narrative being created already, and already somebody in the upstate media kind of took a shot at South Carolina. It's just ridiculous. Worry about your own program. Okay. Nobody brought this kid in because they don't think that the other guys that have been practicing for the last 7 months can't play. That's not. Shane Beamer has been crystal clear about this the last couple of days. I'm not sure exactly how he needs to better say this, Darren. Every program out there has more than 4 quarterbacks. Like, we might not think that that's true, but it is. Even places like Alabama have like 3 walk-on quarterbacks here. They run the scout team.
Yeah, they're not on the depth chart. You don't even really know they exist unless you're really at practice or inside the team and really, really know.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, did Shane say, hey, look, if he earns opportunity to play, he's going to play? Well, of course he did. I mean, he's not going to – well, we brought this guy in to get his ass kicked in practice every day, and he's never going to get a shot. I mean, you've got to be a moron to say something publicly like that if you're a head coach. So exactly what he said is exactly. I was talking to somebody in the program about this last night. They had, with the low numbers they have, they were, even with the carry-on Joyner getting work at QB, they were having to run guys back and forth to run drills. Like it's not like you're always just scrimmaging. There's not just two quarterbacks that are always out there just getting their work in. Like there are other things that happen in a football practice. So they thought that this might be something they needed to do. They've thought about this for a while, and this is this decision by them to pull this GA title off of Zeb Nolan and put him on the field is a preparation deal. That's what I mean. Like we see this every year in college football, and for that matter in other sports, but it's evident in college football when teams aren't prepared. Mm-hmm. And you get in the middle of the year and something's happened, and you go, "Oh my God, we're not prepared for this." They're trying to do everything they can to make sure that their football team's prepared. This doesn't mean they're bringing a kid in off the street to be the starting quarterback. This isn't a movie scene. So I mean, people have kind of built this false narrative about it. And I'm not talking about Gamecock fans necessarily. Don't listen to that crap. It's just a bunch of junk. It's a guy who's going to be able to certainly work and practice. And you know what? Hey, if he does end up playing one day and becoming some type of star, you know what that's going to be? It's going to be a movie scene. That's exactly what it's going to be.
Exactly. Now, so the initial reaction, me, a lot of other people, I'm sure, was, oh, this screams an blank move, right? I mean, because it's not very often that you pull a GA tag. You can't even call it a red shirt.
Actually, I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
No, right? So it is partly all right, we got to do something here. Let's make sure we're prepared and let's do that. But if you actually look at this kid's background, this isn't just a dude. It's not like he was a backup at the Citadel. No offense to the Citadel or Charleston Southern. He started at Iowa State. The guy that beat him out could be a top 5 pick this year. Then he transfers to North Dakota State, and the guy that beat him out is Trey Lance.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It makes sense. I heard Scott Eisberg point this out yesterday. I think Beamer said it first. This guy, Nolan, has taken a more meaningful snap more recently than anybody else on the roster. Whether or not this kid plays, at least there's some experience out there on the field that balances it out. And look, if this kid plays and if he plays well, you want more positive publicity for the program, it's going to be all over you if that's the way it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, the Gamecocks are not in a situation that Clemson is in. Oh, by the way, their quarterback room's a little thin too, boys and girls. If something happens to DJ Uiagalelei, don't tell me that all of a sudden they're still a playoff team. Prove it. This isn't a Georgia situation. This is an Alabama. These programs are in really good shape. Carolina has proven the last couple of years they're not in great shape. They've won 6 games. They've had quarterbacks leave the program. Like, yeah, it's not a good situation to be in. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not trying to spin this. There's no spin to it. But this false narrative that's been, Ryan Helinski, he's the backup up there at Northwestern. And the Gamecocks said they just pulled the GA tag off of somebody to put him on the field. Whoa, yikes. Don't give me that crap. It's 2 totally separate situations. It's just junk is all it is. So, look, he has played meaningful snaps in his career. By the way, he's a guy who came in with eligibility. I mean, he thought his playing career was done. Threw for 360 yards. That's how Shane knew about him against Oklahoma a couple of years ago in a ball game. So, he's a guy that they think can help in practice. When they have to run these drills and stuff, they've got the defensive side of the football is now going to be competing against a guy that, knows how to play quarterback. I mean, it's kind of a good thing. So, it's a move that will hopefully help prepare South Carolina for the season. How much? I don't know. Is this kid in contention to start? No, he's not in contention to start. We'll just say that. If for some off-the-wall reason he ends up starting, we'll be looking for a pretty good explanation from the Gamecock football program on that as to what on God's green earth has happened with everybody else, not including Luke Doty. Why would you take a transfer, from St. Francis and have this kid Colton Gauthier, and you've been training him all year long, and then all of a sudden halfway through fall camp you pull the GA tag off of somebody and all of a sudden he's your starter. But that's not going to happen. We'll talk to JC Shurburtt certainly more about that, Darren. But I just buffoon type comments from some people that have no vested interest in the program, don't cover it. All they do is read the Twitter tags and then come up with their own narratives. But that's the world, certainly, that we live in. Rand, who's the guy in the upstate always badmouthing the Gamecocks? We don't say his name around here, unfortunately. So you could probably figure that out on your own. That's not who I'm referencing in this specific situation here. But what's that?
I said we got another guy this time.
Yeah, referencing somebody else. But yeah, we don't say his name around here. And so best of luck to him. Best of luck to Scott Frost in Nebraska. Darren, doesn't look good up there right now in Cornhusker land. The program is under investigation for a bunch of pretty bad stuff. Practicing in an off-campus site last year when they weren't supposed to be during COVID. Program knew about it. Run by, apparently the strength staff. And there's a host of other things. The school had significant footage that did confirm all of this. The NCAA has been investigating this for quite some time. The allegations, per the report from Brett McMurphy with now the Action Network, dates back 12 months. Multiple current and former staff members, administration, football players, Scott Frost himself, all of them have been interviewed by the NCAA, and many have been implicated in this. By the way, some of them who were high up in this staff under Scott Frost, no longer with the program. But according to Brett McMurphy's reporting, we don't know if that is in any way a direct tie to this investigation. Both of these gentlemen left within the last, I guess, few months. Darren, you read the same report, right? That I read. So if I missed something here, just please correct me. So we don't really know if they're tied in or not tied in to this, or if this situation is tied into their departure. Excuse me. So what does this mean? We don't know. We don't know what it means. The NCAA took 5 years or something like that to figure out what to do with Baylor. They could take 5 seconds, 5 days, or 50 years on this. We have no idea. But Darren, it's a couple weeks before the season. A lot of pressure on Scott Frost. Trev Alberts, a favorite son in Cornhusker land up there. He's the new AD. Now this falls on his shoulders. It has been behind the curtain for a while, but it's public. You got a football season to worry about. It's now public that Scott Frost and some others in that administration were trying to back their way out of the anniversary of the game of the century with Oklahoma, that this is 50 years removed from. That's not a good look. They're going to play it, but it's not a good look. So, they've got a bunch of external issues up there, and you got a football team trying to focus on getting things turned around.
The biggest issue up there is Scott Frost is 12-20 in 3 years, right? That's the biggest issue. Then this, and like you said at the end, it's hard to really tell how much trouble they can get in, if they're going to get in trouble, what those punishments are going to be, and more importantly, when those punishments are going to come. So right now, the biggest problem with Nebraska is their football team stinks, and they haven't been relevant in a while. And now you have this. They've been investigated for a couple of months. There's already pressure on them. If you go into this season and you're not looking good early on, that's where this matters, at least in terms of now. That's why this matters now, because the pressure that's on Scott Frost with a new AD that's in there, they're both beloved Cornhusker guys, but the pressure that's on him is real. And the pressure that's on Alberts to make sure he cleans this up is real. So if he goes out there and struggles early on, it's going to make it a lot easier for Alberts to say, you know what? I can fire you with cause, and the cause has nothing to do with this investigation. I can fire you with cause because on the field, you're 12-25 at this point, or whatever he might be.
Yeah, without cause, I think they'd owe him $20 million. This is starting to feel, I see you, Clint, you're right. This is starting to feel a lot like the Jeremy Pruitt situation at Tennessee from a fallout standpoint. These situations are different, certainly, but from a fallout standpoint, it appears to be headed that way. Darren, they haven't been good since, I'm going to say this, and some people are going to go, what? But it's true. Since Bo Pelini was the head coach, they were good under Bo Pelini. They averaged 9.5 wins a year. He won 66 games in 7 seasons as the head coach before he was fired. When he was fired, if we can recall this, it wasn't necessarily because they were losing. there was a part of the fan base and the administration that certainly thought that they should be winning more. Why? Because it's Nebraska, one of the great sons of college football, one of the great traditions in this sport historically, not this century, but historically, they've always maintained that. I would go as far as to say that they probably have the best fan base in the country. They really do, Darren. They've sold out every game since like 1760. They didn't play football back then, but you get my point. Like they it doesn't matter if they got some 12-year-old ball boy to coach the team, and if they had a bunch of rag dolls out there playing, they're going to pack that place every week. It is really something special to see. That they deserve more. The fan base does. Pelini's fired because he doesn't get along with the administration. He had a lot of issues with the players. They won, but he had issues. The whole incident with Taylor Martinez and things like that. And then again, but I always ask this question. So before I go any further, let me ask you this question. Let's say that, again, they were winning 9 and 10 games a year for 90% of college football. That's very acceptable. 10% of it isn't. Maybe less than that, maybe 5% or something.
Yeah, I'd go small, but yeah,
maybe less. You're right. Okay. Probably today they'd like to have those 9 and 10 win seasons back. But let's say that Bo Pelini was going 11-1. They popped a 12-0, a 10-2, those type things. Won a couple conference championships. Doesn't matter. Big 12, Big 10, whatever. And he had issues with the administration. Would he have been fired? I don't think so. I don't think he would have been.
Well, it's funny how issues get magnified when you're not performing as well on the field. When it slips, when there are other issues, when there are recruiting or, let's say, missteps in terms of getting in trouble, running afoul a little bit, it's easy to grow apart at that point. I think I'll say this about Nebraska fans, because you're at least talking about the fan base. One of the games that sticks out to me most when I was at Penn State as a student was when Nebraska came to Penn State. The fans were great. I mean, they traveled
awesome. They
traveled hard, man, and they were good, genuine people. I mean, good enough.
Blue collar American, man.
It was good enough. It's good enough that I remember it. Like, it sticks out to me because, and then we killed them. So I remember that part too. And the stadium was shaking, and it was awesome. But the fans took that well, and it stands out to me the type of people that were in State College that weekend. So it'd be good for college football if Nebraska can get back to that level. Same as good for college football if Florida State can get back to that level. If Michigan can get back to that level. Brands at a good level are good for the sport, regardless of the sport.
Yeah, and I have a similar story. Carolina beat the crap out of Nebraska in the Capital One Bowl in 2013, and just wonderful people. I mean, honestly, I met a lot of Nebraska people down there. We were down in Orlando for 5 or 6 days, I think it was. Couldn't have been nicer. Before the game, after the game, smart college football fans, understood the sport, understood kind of where they were. Very appreciative of for whatever reason, South Carolina. Just good people. It felt like I related with them. Really hardworking, blue collar, middle class American college football folks. Great people. They deserve better. They deserve better than all of this. And I'm still Scott Frost for the large part is it hasn't worked. You could call it a failure. I'm not there yet, and here's why. They went 4-8, 5-7 in years 1 and 2. I don't teams that struggled last year, Darren. I don't put a ton of stock in that until we see what they do this year. I just don't. I think they were 3-5 in 8 games, and we got to remember what the Big Ten was going through to even get a season going. I mean, Kevin Warren led them right into a dumpster fire, and then they had to turn this whole thing around. And so I'm gonna hold judgment on Scott Frost as their head coach, except for this situation. I'm talking about on the field here, and whether he should be or shouldn't be the future head coach at Nebraska. I don't know that the conversation is entirely fair just yet, but you run out there and have another 4-8, he's not going to be there. So, probably going to have a quite a turnaround because Nebraska, Darren, I know I keep interrupting you, but Nebraska's not what they were. We all know that. So like, and you're in the Big Ten. Like you just named all those teams: Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. Look at everybody else that's doing something now. Minnesota's on the map. Wisconsin. You know, we keep naming teams here. They got a lot more to compete with than they do in the Big 12. And so it's a take time type turnaround. Tongue twister. Holy moly. So let's see where they go this year if he stays on as head coach.
And how much is really on him? Because as Kevin Warren was taking the Big Ten through whatever we want to call that, Nebraska was pretty vocal saying they want to play and that they're ready to go play whoever, wherever, whenever. It doesn't matter if it's Big Ten or not. And then the Big Ten, killed that idea. If Nebraska was so vocal doing that, and you've got Nebraska practicing on fields and breaking certain rules allegedly during this period, how many other superior type people were around saying, yeah, let's make sure our guys are at least staying in shape if we get the go ahead, and let's hope nobody finds out about this. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it makes a whole lot of sense if that actually happened, if they're out there pretty vocally saying we want to go play. The bigger issue is they just got to win on the field. I agree. I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in last year. It was weird. I mean, when folks are analyzing,
they were like going to just go play. Remember, they were trying to just go play without the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it makes sense that they would try and keep their guys practicing to some degree and breaking rules.
I missed that tie-in.
But the bigger issue is, are you going to go win now, right? Because now, if you're not winning, and now you got another black guy, it's this major brand with all this history, then you have to make a change, right? I mean, at that point, the bigger issue is the fact that they're not winning games, and they have to win games. That's the biggest issue, I think.
Can Nebraska be elite in this sport again?
They've got a long way to go because they're not on that tier right now.
No.
No, I mean, they're not even in the discussion right now. They're in the middle, like the bottom of the middle of the pack of the Big Ten right now. The perception of them has changed dramatically. The younger kids, high school kids,
they know nothing about it.
No, they're not dreaming of going to Nebraska. Maybe some of the kids out there, but recruiting nationally against the teams that recruit nationally in order to be relevant, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. Right now, Nebraska can't do that. No.
I think they should. This is going to sound wild. I think they should rejoin the Big 12. And the question, the follow-up question to that, probably from you or somebody else, would be, well, my God, why would the Big 12 want them? Yeah, right now, why would the Big 12 not want anybody? I mean, they're floundering, I think I'm a believer that you never say never to anything. I mean, there was again, I go back to the 90s and Alabama stunk, and everybody's like, well, the days of Alabama are over. That proved to not be true. I think that Nebraska, like any team in this sport, especially in this day and age with the amount of money that's out there, I think everybody has a chance to be elite at some point in time if it all comes together. But for Nebraska, you got to be in a league that you're not going to have to climb as much out of. Now, in saying that, somebody might come up with the argument of, well, I mean, what about like South Carolina? Then they should just join the ACC, or they should join the AAC or whatever. A little bit different here. Nebraska, just like 10 years ago, was a part of the Big 12. I mean, that's where their rivals were. Like, that was Nebraska. Nebraska was the Big 12. Nebraska and Oklahoma and Texas. Like, they were the Big 12.
They can't go back now. It's not even on the table anymore. Now, they don't like the marriage with the Big 10, and I'm not sure how much the Big 10 likes the marriage with Nebraska. Putting that on the table and understanding that they still can't go anywhere, not to the Big 12 now, it makes absolutely no financial sense. Right now, the Big 10 is still paying out its schools more money than the SEC until that new deal kicks in for the SEC.
True.
The Big 12 is paying virtually nothing compared. And that number is going down significantly from where it is. Nebraska, if you want to become nationally relevant again, you can't leave a nationally relevant conference to one that you have no idea what the future looks like.
I mean, you make a great point. I mean, it's a great argument. I mean, it's one of those things, I feel like we've had this conversation in a multitude of ways over the last few weeks with all the expansion and revolving doors and this, that, and the other. I guess the premise that I'm working under here from mentally is if the Big 12 can ever figure out a way to reinvent themselves, they need to go back and bring Nebraska back in, because it's an easier path for Nebraska on the field to be winning up there 9-10 games a year pretty consistently, with a chance to win more than that. If they can restructure some type of deal and kind of reinvent themselves, they're the perfect fit to rejoin the league. I think it would be the right fit from a marketing standpoint. It's brilliant for Nebraska. So, and I saw just a second ago, Clint said, well, if Nick Saban left Bama and went to Nebraska, they could definitely be relevant again. Absolutely. And that's my point, is like, if all the stars align, anybody can be relevant. If Saban left Alabama today and, went to Utah State, they would be a program to, oh God, you don't want to play them. So, I mean, yeah, we're talking about one guy here in Nick Saban. I get it, but stars can't align if you have the right guy and this, that, and the other. And like you said, you're right. You got to have money. You got to have a league that's not going to, die. Nebraska would be, yes, it'd be moronic, Darren, for them to say, you know what? Forget it. Let's go join the Big 12. Well, do you think the Big 12 will be around in 3 years? I don't know. We're going to give it a shot. That'd just be stupid.
Yeah, you can't. If you're Nebraska, you can't. Nobody can, right? Nebraska can't. Nobody can go to the Big 12 right now because of the uncertainty. I mean, this conversation is actually perfect, because the likelihood and the logic of Nick Saban leaving Alabama for Nebraska is equal to the likelihood and the logic of Nebraska going back to the Big 12. Had it been before Texas and Oklahoma, this is a whole different conversation. But now we're in that reality. They can't go to the Big 12, and Nick Saban ain't going there. They're in the Big 10 right now, because right now, if you want to climb back to relevance, you want that money and you want that exposure.
Yeah, I mean, it's it is what it is. I still think Nebraska is a brand. If Nebraska is on TV, I enjoy watching them. I'm a historian of this sport. So that's one of the main reasons for me. If you're a new up-and-comer and you're only about the zazz and the flickering lights on the scoreboard and what shoes are these teams wearing and crap like that, you probably don't care about watching Nebraska. But I would like to see if Darren, we could probably run a poll question and it would get a gazillion responses. If you take all the teams that I would say our generation kind of grew up with that were relevant, Tennessee, Nebraska, Florida State, probably throw Texas in there for that matter, because Texas is relevant, but not at the level that they once were. Probably Southern Cal. I mean, those two programs are a little bit further ahead than the others that I mentioned, and I'm sure you come up with some others. Who would you want to see, just as a fan of the sport, be more relevant again? And I bet you everybody loves to hate Southern Cal. Everybody loves to hate Texas. And there's a lot of people, because of the way Florida State did things, that love to hate Florida State, but there's still a lot of people that would like to see them do well. But I bet you there'd be a huge percentage of folks that voted in that poll that would say Nebraska and Tennessee. They'd say Nebraska and Tennessee. There's something nostalgic about what they did in their eras that I think a lot of people would like to see again.
In this,
not me for Tennessee, by the way.
Yeah, no, in this area,
I'm a hard no on that.
In this area, I think you might be right. In my head, Nebraska and Tennessee would be last on the list you just gave, just because of the Nebraska never played when in my time, right? A little bit before my time, when I was really paying attention, they did have some flair to them, a lot of flair to them, and some riskiness, right? Who knows how much legality was going on, but they had that flair to them. But in my fandom life of college football, they've been a little bland. I love the fan base. I really do. But Southern Cal, I remember, the Reggie Bush and Nat Leinart time, and Vince Young down at Texas. That's what and Florida State forever in the 90s. I remember that too. So if you want them back, all of them being back quote, would be great for the sport. I'd love to see Southern Cal back on top. I'd love to see Texas back in that conversation. I'd love to see Florida State back in that conversation. Nebraska gets there. It's good for the Big Ten.
A lot of Gamecock fans out there would love to see Florida State back in that conversation. I promise you that. Shoot, for that matter, probably the rest of the ACC. Just simply because it's Clemson and everybody else, except for Miami. Clint says Colorado was my second team in the early 90s. I would love to see them come back. Colorado was damn good back then. If you remember the Tommy Frazier days at Nebraska, remember those 2 years, they were 25-0 under Tom Osborne. They were 13-0 and then 12-0 or 12-0 then 13 then 12, I think. Tommy Frazier's quarterback. And that's when Colorado was in the Big 12. And Colorado was number 3 that year.
They were good. That was Cordell Stewart as the quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, that was, you had Spurrier in Florida, and you had Bowden in Florida State, and then you had Tom Osborne in Nebraska, and you had Colorado. I mean, those were the top of the deal back then, and I don't see a 25-game winning streak in the future for the Huskers, but for that matter, really anybody in the sport anymore. I think those days are pretty close to over, man. But yeah, it was something special. So we'll have to see what comes with this, Darren. It appears like it is at least an option to remove Scott Frost with cause, but Trev Alberts and Scott Frost have known each other a long time, boys and girls. These aren't two people that don't get along. They get along. So this is going to be really interesting to see how it unfolds. I don't know. Don't have that answer. Do not have that answer.
He's also a new AD who's charged with getting this program back to where he and Scott Frost want it. He's got to pull the trigger. He'll pull it.
Tim says, Pops, my man Pops, who's going to be at the Gamecock Central party on Friday night. Tim Frisbee, of course. I want to see Miami in capital letters. Relevant again. Yeah. I've never cared for Miami. I mean, it's, whatever. They might be. They might be relevant.
Them and Florida State together. Get them relevant together. Bang.
ACC needs that.
ACC's relevant. Yep.
Boy, the ACC needs that. All right. JC Shurburtt is running a couple of minutes behind. So before we head to a break, I want to kind of make sure. Let me make sure. Hold on a second. Let's see. Oh, yeah, they won again, Braves. I just want to make sure that I knew that they had won last night. Yeah, so Huskar Noah returns, and Braves won again. Just keep winning. 5 in a row now, Darren. I think that's 11 of 13 Atlanta's won. They're 2.5 up on the Phillies.
12 of 14. It was 11 of 13 yesterday. They are on some type of roll, man. They didn't score until the 8th and 9th. It was a scoreless game, and then bang, get a run here, get a run there. Gonna win again. Gonna another game in the East. And
Will Smith was excellent in the night. A couple strikeouts, and Braves just keep doing what the Braves do. And so does Austin Riley, 2 for 4 last night with another home run, 26. I tell you what, man, they win this division. I agree with what Corey said on our show yesterday. It'll be interesting to see at the end of the year who would get more votes, or if one of them would win it, Freddie Freeman or Austin Riley. I mean, they are both having some type of special season. So, all right, we need to hit a timeout. When we return, J.C. Shurburtt, no lights and all in Chicago, Illinois. Plenty to get to on the Gamecocks right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with 0 down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike 2.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right, local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Your online radio. The new online radio that makes you happy.
I got honeybees feeding on my screen. Oh, I got a little buzz in my head. So. Cause it come from a long line of sinners like me.
And you were listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
Don't cry for me when I'm gone. Just put a quarter in the jukebox and sing me back home.
One day we're just going to listen to Eric Church for 2 hours around here and can the rest of this crap. I'm just kidding. Welcome back to JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. On the White Sox bandwagon, it's our friend J.C. Shurburtt, owner of the Big Spur.com. Look, before you say anything, I want to pass this along. Very talented writer that works for you. His name is Hale McGranahan. You should check him out sometime. Handsome, future married fellow. He doesn't know what he's getting himself into. He has just posted a column on the BigSpur.com that has 20. We all look ahead these days. We schedule games in 2050. We got the damn U.S. Open scheduled for 2050. Why not look to 2024's recruiting class? The top prospect in the 2024 recruiting class is quarterback Jaden Davis from Catawba Ridge High School right here in Fort Mill, South Carolina. He's at the top of Carolina's board, JC, and I know we're a few years away from this, but that is certainly interesting right here in the backyard of the Gamecocks. Last time the top overall player came from this state, he ended up at South Carolina. It was Jadeveon Clowney. So kind of see how it all unfolds and see how this ranking moves in the next couple of years. But from what we understand, Shane Beamer and Marcus Satterfield, they know who he is. They've seen him. They've talked to him. We'll see what happens. Go ahead.
Look,
what are you doing in 2024?
I'm just beside myself. We put out, as someone that was a pioneer and one of the originals in this business, I'm almost sick to my stomach. They're putting out 2024 rankings for the sport of football. I feel bad for Jaden Davis because there's absolutely no way he ends up there, in my opinion. It's kind of like Chris Leak, that kind of deal where Chris ended up being, ninth grade, super duper hyped. And then, I don't think it's fair to the kid. I don't think it's fair to coaching staffs. I like Jaden Davis an awful lot. South Carolina really likes him a lot. He's a talented fella. But you just threw a bunch of, unnecessary pressure on the guy, and he's got a ways to go, just like everybody on this list. And I wouldn't have a problem with it if they had an unranked watch list or something. But I think it's ridiculous. I mean, these guys are going into their sophomore year of high school. Sophomore.
Yeah.
All right, not junior. So they got 3 more years. We were in a pandemic year last year as a freshman. You don't know who's out there. You can't realistically do this. I know that we're affiliated with 24/7 Sports, and I understand all that, and I understand sometimes the need to wedge yourself into the conversation in this business and to hype players and all that good stuff. I just think it's way too early for football. And so I put absolutely no stock in any of this. And unfortunately, South Carolina may not – right now they're probably not going to get Jaden Davis, right? It's a long way to go, and they're recruiting him hard, but so is Georgia, and so is North Carolina, and so is everybody else that have the shiny little bells and whistles right now. So this is also unfair to Marcus Satterfield and Shane Beamer because now, oh, God, the number 1 player in the country, that's the narrative, is from South Carolina, is from the Rock Hill area. Oh, God, and so the expectation is that guy should be a Gamecock, where there may be 10 quarterbacks alone better than him at the end of the day for the 2024 class. So I'm not trying to get all topical or critical. I just, seeing that today, it kind of turned my stomach a little bit, to be honest.
I applaud you for saying something like that. I mean, I would think that 9 out of 10 folks in your business, my God, is it raining again? Sweet Jesus. I mean, how am I ever going to cut the damn grass? Sorry.
Get some,
I need
some
to
snakes and gators in there, James.
I need to put a shade on this window so I don't know what's going on out there. It gets me all bent out of shape. Look, I 9 out of 10 folks in this industry, JC, and I know that you're not trying to piss off anybody or run folks off or cause a ruckus, but they want the reaction to this. This is more eyeballs. This is more money. It all equates, and but you're looking at it from the other side, which is it fair to the number one, the kid, and then is it fair to those that will be recruiting the kid? And so I applaud you for that. I think it brings credibility to who you are as an evaluator, as a person, somebody in this business. So I think that's well said. All right, so let's move on to other quarterback news. Why sign the top-ranked kid in the country when you can just pull the GA tag off somebody and create this narrative that you don't have any quarterbacks, and you get Clemson reporters tweeting out that you should have kept Ryan Olinsky and all this other crap. So
are you serious? Some Clemson reporter did that. I mean,
go search for it. You'll find it. You'll see.
Some of these guys, man. I mean, it wasn't our friend in the upstate, was it?
No. No, he doesn't. He's too focused on ratings, JC. But look, so the Zeb Nolan situation. All right, this is how I addressed it, and then I'm gonna let you take it from here. That if I'm wrong, correct me. I don't think I am though. This is a preparation situation for Shane Beamer and that staff. Shane, the one thing that stuck out to me is not the clip that's getting aired all over the place. What stuck out to me is we have practice drills out here, and we need to have more quarterbacks. And this guy's a capable quarterback to come out here and to be able to help facilitate practice. It's nice to have a defense, be able to go up against a guy that knows how to throw the damn football. So, this isn't with the intention of we don't have any quarterbacks. Jason Brown isn't good. Gauthier isn't any good. Doty's never coming back, and we're going to have to start some kid who's charting for us in a little office up there in the facility. It's not what this is. This is a situation where guys, these coaches have been around the block. Generally, these programs have 6 and 7 quarterbacks in them. They're able to go out there and work through practices. That's what they call, quote, practice dummies sometimes. That's what these guys are when they're on the scout team. And that's how you get better as a football team. So they've been thinking about doing this for a while. They're not going to require Kerryon Joyner to go there and be a full-time quarterback. They're trying to prepare their football team. This is a preparation move. It's getting some headlines. It's an interesting story. But JC, this wasn't with the intent of, well, we don't have a quarterback. We need to start a guy. Although he has great experience, pretty good experience. We need to start a guy who didn't come to South Carolina with the intent to play. That was long-winded, but you take it from there.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. There's just a lot of stuff floating out around. I mean, I can't fathom why you know, and look, the Clemson people are going to take shots, and you know, it's easy to kick somebody when they're down when you're Clemson, you know, and all that. But we'll see kind of what happens with that program and their season this year, and you know, all respect for them. You know, Shane Beamer, you know, nobody seems to listen to what he says in the press conference, which is hilarious to me. You know, the guy is not a BS artist. You know, I've known Shane Beamer for 15 years, and he's a straight shooter and direct. And he said, look, this really has nothing to do with Doty's injury. We've been talking about this for a while. You know, Zeb has experience. You know, what happens if you start Jason Brown? Doty's foot doesn't respond, and you start Jason Brown, and he blows out a knee.
Right.
You know, Colton Gauthier is a true freshman. Connor Jordan's a walk-on. Would you not want maybe a guy that's 24 years old that has started against Oklahoma at some point in his career to go into Greenville, North Carolina, and maybe get you through, and to go into Athens so you can compete? Yeah, absolutely. Good coaches ponder the what-ifs. All right? This is not Xbox, right? and I know people love recruiting, and look, I love recruiting too. But you know, let's not sit there and make every roster addition out to be, you know, oh, this is why they're doing this. I mean, number one, this is football, not basketball. You know, you're not activating the water boy because you only have 8 players, like in basketball. You know, this is football, right? You know, so not every player that you get is even going to play in the game. All right, so you know that's my thing about it is there's just a complete overreaction, you know, not only by Carolina fans but by people outside. And yeah, it's an interesting story. How many graduate assistants do you know that have hung up the cleats and then said, "All right, well, I'm coming back out," you know, and all that. I mean, I think that, you know, can Zeb Norland contribute to this football team? I think so. You know, but I think it would take a lot of, you know, other people not either being hurt or not performing well and stuff like that, you know, for him to go be the starter. And like Beamer said, Beamer's not lying. It doesn't have anything to do with Jason Brown or even Luke Doty. I mean, it just has to do with depth. And, you know, everybody went crazy because they were like, you know, giving Joyner some snaps at quarterback, and Beamer mentioned it. Well, if you go back and look, Marcus Satterfield said the same thing in the spring. We're giving him Wildcat quarterback snaps, and that's all it is. Oh, Joyner's going back to quarterback. You know, there's actually people out there that believe, based on headlines and narratives and Twitter or whatever, that DeCarrion Joyner is now repping at quarterback. I actually saw this statement from someone that said, well, that's not fair to DeCarrion. You know, he's not playing quarterback.
Right.
You know, he's the starter. He's the number one receiver right now. Okay. So they need him at receiver, and he's looking really good at it. So I could, you know, I rejected it. And like the Clemson people, hey, fine. It's a rivalry, man. They're going to say that. Who cares?
Yeah.
The idiots in the national media that want to blather on and on and on and on, they're gonna take little snarky shots because they're little snarky people that, quite frankly, need to be watching and covering English Premier League soccer or men's softball at the church league rather than the greatest sport on earth. All right. So those are the people that are going to take little shots. And I think now, you know, those of us that have a backbone and that understand the sport and that love the sport and that are, you know, act like men, quite frankly, we need to kind of just ignore them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole thing there. You know, and look, I watched Zeb Norland's film. There are a whole lot worse quarterbacks out there, man. I mean, like, I was thinking back to that guy Sawyer Brown that started for Kentucky a couple of years ago before they just said, to heck with it, let's put Lynn Bowden in quarterback. Zeb Norland's better than he is. You know, Zeb Norland's better than a lot of the quarterbacks that have started at Vandy over the years. Zeb Norland's better than, you know, many that have started in ACC and SEC. I mean,
I could probably name a couple quarterbacks in Carolina he's better than.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do it, but
you know, but you know, so I think for what purpose that is, you know, that it's fine and people should just calm down. I mean, like it's nothing's changed really with this edition other than Shane Beamer, you know, can practice the way he wants to practice because he's got 4 quarterbacks going on 2 different fields.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I guess maybe I did want to because that's how I let off this conversation. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to, make it a bigger deal than it is. I just think that people miss the point with these things sometimes. I mean, it is a story, and it is a neat story, and this isn't, this isn't to discredit the story itself or anything like that. But I think that you just said it. I think you just said it perfectly. But for those that don't understand what happens in football on Sunday through Friday, then they won't understand. But this is football. Like, there is a lot of different stuff that you have to do to be able to prepare your football team than in some of these other sports. And I also want to say this, JC, and I think I'm speaking for you here. We're not trying to put lipstick on this pig. This isn't a situation that they want to be in. Like, we're not trying to, dress up the ugliest girl at the dance right now to make her look like the most beautiful thing that stepped on the dance floor. I mean, that's not true. Like, but the situation and how it's been spun by some people out there is where we need to kind of correct it.
Yeah.
It's not a situation they want to be in, but the reasons that are being given as to why they're doing it isn't because they don't have somebody who can play quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, look, man. I'm going to take you back to 1999. Okay.
Oh, God. We didn't win a game that year. Why the hell are we going back that far? Can you stop at 2000?
First year head coach, disappointing season, guy that, writing was on the wall before the year, goes 1-10, he gets fired, right? Writing was on the wall with Muschamp, goes 2-8 and gets fired, although the circumstances were different. That team with Lou Holtz, who made some mistakes. I mean, Lou Holtz tried to run the Notre Dame offense from 1991 and 1999, and the game was evolving, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But, what happened? Phil Petty got hurt. I think it's Mississippi State. And so Mikael Goodman, a true freshman, starts. Kyle Crabb made a start in a valiant 11-10 loss to Vanderbilt at home, which was one of the ugliest losses I've ever seen in my life at any level of football, including Pee Wee League, where the little kids just run around with their helmets and fall down.
That's what we were doing that day.
Yeah, I mean, it was that game. I remember sitting there, and I think it was 8-3 South Carolina. And that defense had John Abraham, Kalimba Edwards, Sheldon Brown.
That was actually a really good defense.
Pretty good defense. Gamecocks are up 8-3 in the bottom of the ninth. And Vandy scores and 2-point conversion. And then Vandy takes an intentional safety. And you're like, so South Carolina got 2 field goals and 2 safeties in that game.
Yeah.
I think, or maybe they scored a tie. But anyway, Kyle Crabb started that one. Kevin Sides at Arkansas that year. Carlos Spikes took quarterback reps. I mean, then they got Phil Petty back, and they actually gave Florida a pretty good game, and then actually gave Clemson a really good game at the end of the year. Lost 31-21. It was 24-21 in the fourth. So we have seen the quarterback situation at South Carolina before be a very desperate emergency thing. It was 22 years ago, but we have seen that. We've also seen situations where starters have gone out. I mean, I could name them for you. Anthony Wright, Jake Bentley gets hurt for the year at one point. Connor Shaw had a foot injury that, just like Luke Doty, that he nursed in 2012. Dylan Thompson had to start and come in. You look back on it. Last year, you had Helinski, wasn't physically injured, but really wasn't a factor. We've seen desperate situations. And while it's a little scary, of course, because, and I'm not sitting here going, oh, they're going to win 9 games or whatever. I'm saying it's a concern, but Shane Beamer and his staff, Marcus Effer, they weren't like break glass in case of emergency. My God, we're going to have Zeb Norland start this year because we don't have anybody else. That's just not reality. I think what it does is it does create some competition. I think Zeb Norland was a guy that, when he took over at Iowa State, he was the quarterback of the future. And then North Dakota State was, happy to have him. I've gone back and looked at some tape. I see what they like about him. He's a coach's son. The problem he's had is I think he trusts his arm too much. and he hasn't really played within the scheme of the offense. And then Brock Purdy took over for him when he got hurt at Iowa State, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And then he sat behind Trey Lance, and then at North Dakota State, it's a spring season or whatever, he gets benched because they have really, really high standards. Folks need to look that up. And he's just going to hang it up. So, I don't, people are like, South Carolina has to play him, they're in trouble. That's not necessarily the case. I'm not saying they're going to have to play it, but I'm saying there are worse options at quarterback than him, period. I mean, there's just, no questions asked. So I think, people need to kind of dial into reality. I don't think it's doom and gloom to be concerned. But I think this dismissiveness that a lot of Gamecock fans have towards individual players is sad and pathetic, and more of a function of, I think, fan insecurity than actual reality.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If it ever came to it, I would think that that Zeb Norland would be looking for his Eric Kimmery moment. You know what I mean? That type of situation where, my God, we got to get somebody in there for a play, and this is a situation where hopefully you're never in that spot. Hopefully Luke Doty's back before week 1. That's the hope. Look, man, we can't leave out all these quarterbacks getting hurt conversations without the fade coming into play here, because that was still one of the great moments ever at Williams-Brice Stadium. JC Shurburtt, 12:56 on this Wednesday afternoon. We're going to get more into the offensive starters and things like that coming up in segment number 2 with JC at the top of the 1 o'clock hour. We'll try to mix in some SEC stuff that's going on out there as well. Real quick, though, before we want to run to break here, JC, final couple of minutes. Anything that you can update on the injury front? There are some guys banged up for South Carolina. We know about Luke Doty. But can you update us with what you know on Ricky Sandage? I know E.J. Jenkins has been away from the team. I don't know if you have any information on that. And Cam Smith, a couple of those other guys.
All right. So Sandage has a leg injury that's going to keep him out for what's termed a while. I don't know if it's a fracture or broken a little. I mean, there's talk he had a broken leg. And obviously, if he's going to come back this season, it's not as serious as a broken leg. I mean, I think that takes a while to heal. Cam Smith is still nursing the foot injury. And he should be ready for the opener. Nothing's changed with he or Kevin Harris.
Okay.
My guess is if they're not 100, at least 90%, they'd probably hold them for Eastern Illinois and make sure they're okay for ECU. With Kevin Harris specifically, though, I think the longer this goes, I'm not going to call it a concern, but the less he practices, the more there's a good chance that Marshawn Lloyd and Zaquandre White and maybe even Rashad Amos or Juju McDowell take some of his carries. So I don't know. If I were him, and look, there's medical reasons why he's not practicing, no doubt. So don't put that on the Twitter, what I said there. I don't want that floating around because I don't want to question why he's sitting out. Back is a serious thing. I'm just saying reality is there are a lot of talented backs on this roster, and if you don't have to run him,
right,
and you can rest him or whatever, they're not going to. And I know Kevin has some goals, and so I just that would be my concern about him if I were looking at it that way. So. Is Doty going to be back by the start? I'm just like, I don't know. I think that that's sort of up to his foot, and that could mean misses the opener, first 2 games, first month. I mean, you just never know with that kind of injury how quickly it's going to heal. Same thing with Cam Smith. And, thankfully it's just a sprain. So, look, and I'll say this too. I don't think South Carolina is in bad shape injury-wise. Believe me, I've seen a lot of injuries. Speaking of, I think one of the worst takes of the year that I saw on the message board was because Shane Beamer's never been a head coach. He allowed his quarterback to get stepped on in practice. And I'm like, well, because he's not experienced. And I'm like, well, geez, they just had a guy that came in with 4 years SEC experience that last time I checked had more injuries than that, every year than that first Holtz team had in 1999. So there's no correlation between coaching experience and keeping your quarterback upright. So that's my thing there. But that was probably one of the worst hot takes of the year. But I think South Carolina's still in pretty good shape. I think that the problem is with some folks right now, though, is we went through kind of a period there over the spring and the summer recruiting period and the off season where, hey, there was nothing negative that happened. It was all sunshine and rainbows, and now reality's setting in. It's just a normal football preseason, and people are freaking out. It's like Shrek and Lord Farquhar when his little magical kingdom gets invaded by the ogre. He's I will not have this. John Lithgow, by the way, really good job with that role.
I think you couple that with Muschamp, with the Muschamp injury report, PTSD that a lot of us have. You get some of this reaction. JC, we'll leave it there for now. We got to hit a timeout. When we return, though, we'll kind of glance around the offense, projected starters, things like that. You kind of hinted at some of that just a moment ago. But we will talk about the defense a little bit as well. Marcellus Dial is starting to make a name for himself in camp. For those that aren't aware, we'll inform you right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes of Volkswagen when we return.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Lowcountry. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
Show. Live, loud, and online.
Final hour, Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. We're 2 weeks and 1 day away from football season in the SEC. But we only have one more Saturday without football, period. Starting next Saturday, college football will be played in this land. I think Illinois and Nebraska are actually scheduled to play next Saturday as well. So that adds to the Scott Frost news. All right, JC, Darren, and JB, make sure you've downloaded the JB and Goldwater app. You can always head to our website as well, jbandgoldwatershow.com. Follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. Well, I'm just on Twitter. I'm not on all that other junk everybody argues about all day. That's not for me. It's just for Darren.
You got Instagram?
Yeah, but I don't use it. I think I used it once in 3 years or something. I don't know. You know, it's for my kids. It's I don't even ever look at it. Some of it, I some of this stuff, I forgot even how to use some of these things. I just discovered today on Twitter they got these little circles on top. You click them and you have these little live photos that are going on. Didn't even know that. All right. Also, another website you might want to check out is called The Big Spur. BIGSPUR, bigspur.com. All right, JC, before we get to the offense, and this guy owns it, by the way, JC Shurburtt. Let's talk about Marcellus Dial. So, I texted a contact up there. Yes, I don't know, some one of the last couple of days, and just kind of asking some questions. I did ask about Marcellus, and the quote I got back was he's playing faster. So that generally means the light's coming on a little bit, JC. What have you heard about Marcellus Dial? It looks like I wouldn't say he's a starter, but if you wanted to project, you might want to probably throw his name in there.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of good feedback on him since the summer. And look, here's the thing about Marcellus Dial, and I said this when they signed Prunty. The reason Prunty was a big deal was Marcellus Dial hasn't really played a lot of football since he was a senior at Woodruff High School. By the way, Woodruff High School burnt down in the 80s, and REO Speedwagon played a benefit concert to rebuild it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Quick trivia. Time for me to fly, that kind of thing.
Yeah. God bless REO Speedwagon.
Take it on the run, baby.
In beautiful Woodruff, South Carolina.
In Woodruff, South Carolina. And I live, of course, I'm from Spartanburg County, and so obviously know Woodruff well. Tony Rice at Notre Dame. Quarterback at Notre Dame played there. Derek Jones is a corner at Ole Miss. He's now an assistant coach. He played Woodruff. So, yeah, but, when Marcellus was at Woodruff, he's all over the field. He's just one of these guys. I don't even know if you call it a position. You just threw him out there. And, corners at 2A football in South Carolina, sometimes they don't get challenged because nobody's throwing it. But he's all over the field. Great athlete. But then he goes to Georgia Military and redshirted. It's probably the equivalent of playing less than 4 and redshirting. And then the pandemic cancels the next season. And so he hadn't played football in a long time. And so when you get Prunty, I thought Dial looked really good in the spring game. Just physicality and bouncing around and things like that. And so it makes sense that he's playing faster because he's kind of getting his, what they, you call them the sea legs back under you, having been out for so long. Excuse my dog again. I don't know why we can't avoid that, but Wednesdays are trash days, and they just come at the wrong time. But you guys can tell I'm in a chipper mood today, can't you? I am in a peachy mood today. I didn't get enough sleep, but so that doesn't surprise me, and that's a good deal, because South Carolina's going to have another corner. I think. If this were last year's schedule, or if Carolina were opening against Navy or Wofford or a triple option team, or if, Coastal Carolina was coming to town like was supposed to happen last year, you're probably concerned because Marcellus Dial has not played a whole lot. But, Eastern Illinois is a very young football team as well out of FCS. I'm not trying to downplay them because that's not cool. But, I think it's a good thing South Carolina's schedule doesn't really start with a bang this year. They sort of ease in. And I think players like Marcellus Dial like Carlin Splittell, who's coming up from a different level, like Jordan Strong, like Debo Williams or whoever, the newcomer guys, I think that helps them because, they have 2 games to kind of, like stairs to get ready before they got to go to Athens, Georgia, the 3rd week of September.
That's kind of where I'm glad you just said that. That was going to be part of our last conversation and now part of this one as well. It almost feels like it is a gradual ramp up to the season, if you'd like to say it like that. Again, I'm with you. I don't want to disparage any program out there. I think ECU is more than capable of beating South Carolina in an upset in week 2 in Greenville. And although I'd like to say Eastern Illinois didn't have a prayer, let's just leave it at that. But you start with Eastern Illinois, you go to ECU, and then it's Georgia. Yeah, I get it. You go from not good to, you should beat them on the road. And then you go to Athens, top 5, top 3, top 4 team, whatever. So it almost feels to me, JC, like there's probably a different timeline for some of those who we've been kind of expecting to contribute. I mean, I would think, with what you said with Kevin Harris a little while ago, I would think the drop dead date, if you feel like, well, look, Harris is coming back, but he's iffy for game 1, I would say, okay, well, then just circle September the 18th and try to make sure he's ready to go in Athens. Cam Smith, you probably want to have him ready to go at ECU if you can. Luke Doty, same thing. If you can get him ready by ECU, that's great. Drop dead date, probably the Georgia game. And then a guy like Marcellus Dial, he's not hurt, but from the standpoint of getting him ready, you want him to start to be able to peak right around probably week 2 because ECU, they're going to toss the football around.
Yeah, and then that's why I think it's critical that Eastern Illinois game, that South Carolina goes out there and doesn't turn it over and plays crisp football so you can work some of those guys into game situations. I mean, the opponent's not all that good, but it's going to be an electric atmosphere at Williams-Brice because it's the first game of the Beamer era and the season opener, and it's a night game. God, if I'm an Eastern Illinois Panther, I don't know, maybe wear some Depends or something when I walk out there because it's going to be unlike anything they've ever played in my opinion. But, so that's my thing there. I think, you don't want to talk about blowing teams out and stuff like that because when you do that, then it's all of a sudden 21-16 in the 4th quarter, no matter who you are. But I think it is, as far as getting some of these guys back in the trajectory of the season, they're going to definitely need Kevin Harris when it comes to SEC time, probably against East Carolina too. Definitely going to need Cam Smith. Can they beat Eastern Illinois without those guys? Yes, I think they can. But it's, you're right kind of about, once you go to battle in Athens, you need all your arrows in the quiver, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's a nice way to say it. JC Shurburtt, 112 on a Wednesday afternoon. All right, let's kind of drive around the offensive side of the football here, JC. I don't know when the official depth chart's coming out, probably sometime the week of the game, I would assume. But Shane might answer some questions tomorrow night at Carolina Calls. Go ahead, caller. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, I can't wait for that. All right, Coach. Glad to have you. Wanted to welcome you to Columbia.
Jeez.
Been here before. But if we had to kind of write the depth chart today, let's say, we needed to get one out, starting at quarterback, drive us around the offensive depth chart, which you would see.
Offensive? Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that right now, and look, it also depends on the formation because this offense has a lot of different formations, and there's a lot of what I call versatile jack of all trades types of guys that you can plug in, and so your starters are one thing, but you start in a formation, and so it's another. So there's about 13 guys that or you call starters. I think right now it's safe to say, Beamer even alluded to it, that Dakarian Joyner and Jalen Brooks are probably the top 2 receivers. And then you got veterans like Josh Vann and Otrey Smith behind him, and probably Xavier Leggett, who's coming back. Amarian Brown had another injury, the transfer from Georgia Tech. So I'm not as certain that he's going to be ready to roll right away game one, as far as, he had some catching up to do with some of these guys anyway. After that, it's probably either the walk-ons or Rico Powers, Jakari Call, something like that, and those guys haven't had bad camps. There's just been a little bit of separation there. The offensive line, I think, set. Now, I want to point this out too. I think it's a neat thing because everybody kind of, I think the last few years has thought South Carolina has not recruited North Carolina well. Well, the offensive line has 3 starters from Charlotte. Believe it or not, Jovan Gwynn, Eric Douglas, and Jalen Nichols are all starting at center guard. I think Jalen Nichols could be a fantastic guard. He played really pretty well at right tackle as a true freshman in a tough situation down in Georgia and made 3 starts. Jasden Turrentine right now is the left tackle because Ja'Kai Moore's kind of been hadn't had a lot of reps in camp. He was supposed to push him, but Turrentine is in shape now. I think when you saw him play last year, when he wasn't winded, he was pretty doggone good. I mean, he's 6'7", 342 and can move. Not a fat guy, not a fat guy. 6'7", 342.
Can we hit pause on that real quick? So let's go back to that situation. The Turrentine, when he came to South Carolina, JC, we all were under the impression, for a couple of different reasons, that he was going to step right in and start. And then we started to catch wind that, well, he's just not picking it up. Remember these conversations? He's just not picking it up. And they were talking about moving Wonham to left tackle and all these things. And then about halfway through the year, Turrentine, the light starts to kind of come on. But now, though, there's been a change in the coaching staffs. You got a new OC, you got all these new guys in there kind of doing things. So from a mental standpoint, if you could kind of go back to that moment where he was kind of trying to get it figured out in where he is now, how has this coaching change affected him, either for better or for worse?
I don't know if it's the coaching change necessarily. It says just COVID and
okay,
just because those guys last summer, right? And look, let me back up because that may be not as easy as I'm putting it. Eric Wolford was a really good recruiter, a really good evaluator of talent, pretty decent offensive line coach. This is the second time he's been at South Carolina and left what I feel like will be multiple NFL players on the offensive line. I mean, the glory years, you look at those offensive lines, and Wolford recruited a bunch of those guys. Okay. Yeah. So I don't want to, diminish what he did and the table he set for Greg Atkins. I'll say this: there needed to be a new voice in that room, based on multiple accounts, and sometimes that just happens, especially when you're playing offensive line, and you got to motivate those big guys. And then COVID happened last year, right? And so a lot of these guys, whereas you have your normal summer program, and these guys may chill out in May and go to the Quincy's over in Florence or whatever and have a good old time, and then they go back during the summer and they work really hard. I do too. There's one left. It's in Florence. I passed it the other day.
I need to get up there.
But these guys, they use the summer to get in shape. Well, they didn't really have a full summer. They go one day, you'd have COVID protocol. You've got this, you've got that, you got the other. And so at the end of the day, I think that affected every big guy on the team last year. Offensive line, defensive line, big linebackers, whatever. Because they just didn't have that. You guys know, there's a big difference between, okay, I'm working out, going to practice every couple of days, or when you're grinding every day to get yourself in peak physical condition for a grind of a football season. And I know that happened all over the country, and I'm not using that as like an example of why Carolina went 2-8 last year, because that's not why they went 2-8 last year. But when you're talking about Jasden Turrentine, or why he wasn't as good as maybe we thought, he just didn't have the offseason. So now he's had the offseason. That said, if Ja'Kai Moore was healthy, I don't know that Ja'Kai Moore wouldn't have won that job. But I think for the O-line in general, I was, Jordan Rhodes opted out last weekend, and I was actually I never said this because, I don't want to talk about it. I was actually quite surprised that more offensive linemen didn't leave the program. just because the morale with that group last year, even though they played pretty doggone well, especially in the run game, they were just kind of a bunch of beat down guys. And Greg Atkins has kind of brought a new approach. And I think that should pay dividends. I thought the first drive of the spring game, even though the defense wasn't doing anything special, they were just kind of there. The offensive line really played well. And you've got, Javon Gwynn's made 21 straight starts now. You've got Dylan Wanham, who was a freshman All-American. You got Turnentine, who's a monster. You got Jalen Nichols. And then Eric Douglas, I thought, was one of the guys on the offensive line last year that had his best season by far. He was a Remington Award nominee, best center in the country. Eric Douglas really didn't have a lot of good games before last year when he moved to center. He immediately wins the center job, and away he goes. So, I think South Carolina's been pretty fortunate with the Donnell Stanleys of the world and centers over the years, and I think that Douglas is the next really good one. So, that group's going to be good. So you want me to keep going on my projected starters?
Well, unless they're only going to play 5 offensive linemen this year. Will they play anybody else, or are they just going to run 5 guys out there?
No.
Are they going to play some wide receivers and tight ends and other positions, or just the 5 linemen?
Only tight ends. Only tight ends.
Well, we actually had some fun with Perry Orth on Monday because I said, hey, explain what 12 personnel and 22. Like, people are like, oh, man, we're in 36 personnel. I'm like, no, we're not, you dumbass. You don't even know what it is.
36.
You just hear people in the stand. You know how it is, JC. They should have thrown the ball there. It was 4th and 28 from our own 7-yard line. Why would we have thrown the football? Those type of conversations. So I had to have Perry explain what personnel is, and I asked him, what did I ask him? If we'd ever be in 33 personnel?
33.
With all tight ends and running backs?
I was suggesting 25 because that could maybe 24.
Maybe. You never know. So wide receiver, the group that they run out and sometimes catch the ball, hopefully this year more often than not.
Yeah.
You said earlier you projected to carry on Joyner and whom else?
Jalen Brooks to be then Josh Van. I mean, look, I'm as skeptical as the next person about Van just because, he's had the drops since he's been at Carolina, and then last year wasn't productive. His production was almost cut in half. I feel like he caught 19 balls at his junior year. I feel like if he can cut down on the drops and catch it when it's thrown to you in an appropriate manner, don't drop it, and get back to 20. I think that's good. Just like with Smith or Trey Smith, I think if he can get to 20, that would be great this year in terms of production.
He's got to get more consistent.
Amarian Brown has to get healthy and really kind of show what he can do and continue to come on. And then, I think too, guys, if I had to if this were fantasy football, I'd buy
it is for some
right now. I'd buy EJ Jenkins and Jaheim Bell and make them WR1 and WR2 because those guys they're listed as tight end. Well, actually, Jenkins was listed as a receiver / tight end. Those 2 guys are going to be big parts of this passing game, and Jaheim Bell's going to be a big part of this offense. Period. And so, when you're looking at it and you're just saying, okay, just receivers, you're not throwing Jenkins and Bell in there. I mean, and Nick Muse is kind of in a different category, and I'll get to that in a second. You're really kind of diminishing what I think will be, the people that are doing the playing and making the plays. I mentioned Muse. Muse is the what you call attached tight end. In other words, he's down there blocking. They've worked really hard on his blocking, Eric Kimry and the rest of the staff, and he's worked exceptionally hard. He's one of the leaders of the team. I think Nick Muse gets a lot of bad I don't know, whatever, because he dropped a ball against Charleston Southern in a 72-10 win. Yeah. So people hold that against him, and then that Tennessee drop was critical, but, that ball, Colin threw that ball high. I mean, and, unfortunately, if it hit Muse right in the breadbasket and he hadn't had to go up for it, he probably would have scored on that play.
Yeah.
But, you look at some of the plays Nick has made. At Georgia in 2019, he was 1 year removed from playing for William and Mary, and catches a key third down. He's got a chance, I think, to have a really good year in more of a traditional tight end sense. So that's my feeling there too.
Zaquandre White is so interesting in this because I guess, JC, if they released a depth chart today, my projection would be that the running back position would say Harris or Lloyd or White, and not necessarily in that order. I don't think it matters which way you order it. But Zaquandre White and Jaheim Bell and EJ Jenkins, at least in my mind, gosh, I guess you kind of need to throw the Kerryon Joyner into the mix maybe a little bit, but I would call them flex players. I mean, I just wouldn't be shocked to see anything, and I wouldn't be shocked to see Bell line up in the backfield. We saw it in the spring game. I wouldn't be shocked to see Jenkins lined up, with his hand on the ground or split out wide. I wouldn't be shocked to see Zaquandre White be split out wide and in the slot and things like that. It just appears to me that we've used the word creativity a lot, and we're going to get these depth charts, and that's going to mean something until the game starts, and then you're probably going to see guys just all over the place.
Yeah, that would be it. And I don't even know that you're going to start the game with what's on your depth chart with this offense and sort of what they want to do. But yeah, there's a lot of versatile guys, and that's the positive thing. And that's kind of why I think sometimes fans, can't see the forest through the trees in a lot of ways with it, because you look at it and it's like, well, who you got at receiver? Well, these guys are listed at receiver. Well, these guys are unproven or they hadn't done much or whatever. Well, who do you got? It should really be, as football is these days at a lot of levels, about like who's catching passes. I mean, I'll give you two examples. Shane Beamer at Oklahoma last year, they didn't have a ton of great receivers, but they had some H-backs that were just unbelievable. You look at the 49ers and the different people with their Super Bowl team that were catching the ball. Deebo Samuel was actually the number 2 actual receiver, but then they had a bunch of guys that caught passes, and that's kind of the idea, and that's really where football offensively is heading these days. I think that those that want to run air raid with the receivers and quarterback Carolina has are going to be sadly mistaken about what's best for this team, and I think that with the versatile players they have, and the start to the year and all that, I think Carolina, will be in better shape passing game wise than maybe most people think, at least for a while, until they get to Georgia. And then at that point, it kind of becomes about confidence and personnel and who's playing and who's not and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And Shane has, he mentioned, I guess, Saturday when he had to address the Doty injury, JC, and we can all speculate all we want to, but publicly he came out and said this injury doesn't change our offense. We're going to keep running our offense. The offense we've been designing here, that's what we're going to keep doing. I mean, I would like to think there's probably something that's going to change. Luke Doty is the dude in that quarterback room who can really get out of there and utilize his legs better than anybody else. But as far as what they're implementing and how they're probably trying to run this system, I mean, whoever's back there, it's going to be up to them to play well, and they might call plays differently based on what guys can and can't do. I get it, but they're not just reinventing an offense and all of a sudden changing personnel because Luke Doty's not in the game or whatever. None of that's changing.
No, I mean, all this does is, okay, so Jason Brown is not, I mean, the kid's worked really hard. I think he's got some talent. He lost 15 pounds over the summer. He's more mobile now. He's, gotten more comfortable, as he stated, with the offense. The offense itself is not going to change. Now, this offense is a very versatile system. So with Luke Doty in the game, maybe you run some quarterback option or some inside zone read with the keeper and things like that to keep defenses honest and use his running ability. With Jason Brown, you're probably not going to do that. And I think, Beamer has mentioned that from the start. It's just really, from what I've been told before he got the job is that, he learned at Oklahoma, hey, look, we've got Kyler Murray this year. Okay, well, Murray can run a little, but he's a really good passer, so let's do this. Well, now we have Jalen Hurts, so, Hurts is probably not the strongest passer out there, but we can really take advantage of his legs. And Lincoln Riley adapted that way. And most good offensive coordinators do. And so that's one of the ideas behind this Marcus Satterfield offense, which everybody is very curious to see, is that, you can use it with a dual threat guy, or you can use it with a good passer or whatever, like Brown is. And quite frankly, guys, at South Carolina, you're probably better served having a system like this that you could adapt year to year, because some years there's going to be quarterbacks that are, you can get that are really good passers. Some years you're going to have guys that, are dual threat guys that are electric, especially from within the state that you would like. I mean, you just look at the history of the program and the quarterbacks that have played here, go back to the Holtz era, and, you got Savell Newton and Blake Mitchell. Well, you got to kind of decide if you're Lou Holtz or Steve Spurrier at that point, which direction you want to go. And Spurrier didn't care, so he was like, I'm just going to do this and let Savell run around for 6 games. And we'll see how better you are when you get back, Blake.
It's true.
With Holtz, I think that they, Skip Holtz and Lou both sort of struggled at times about like what style they wanted. And I'll say this too, I think that in the latter part of the Spurrier years, G.A. Mangus, his offense is similar to Spurrier's, and the passing game is just like it. But he's also got some quarterback run things he likes to do. So I think at some point in there, there was a disconnect, because I think he was recruiting guys, like Shaw, like a Connor Shaw type of guy, because we're going to continue to run the quarterback and all that. And then Spurrier Jr. and his dad were like, well, we'd like to take Michael Scarnecchia, which is a different type of guy. And I think that's, as the offense later, that's why your Tanner McAvoys and Brendan Nosoviches of the world didn't really pan out for South Carolina at that point. So I think that if you just kind of look at the quarterbacks this program has been able to attract over the years, it is in their best interest to have a system that is adaptable. And I think Shane not only learned that at Oklahoma, but at Virginia Tech too. Virginia Tech's offense for years, it was kind of the same deal, but different. It could go from a Michael Vick from a Jim Druckenmiller, not mobile, to a Michael Vick, mobile, to a guy like Tyrod Taylor that was sort of mobile, to a guy like Marcus Vick who was more of a runner, and it just evolved. And I think, learning that from his dad as well, I mean, those are kind of the philosophies Shane Beamer has. And I think, with Doty hurt and Brown coming in, I mean, I think you're seeing that early that, hey, it's okay. You can have a different style guy and still have the same offense.
Only a couple of more Wednesdays left, JC, and then Carolina football will be here. TheBigSpur.com, they've got you totally covered leading up into the season, and then they'll that's it. Then you're on your own, and then they'll rejoin you in December. No, I'm just kidding.
They come back for baseball.
Then it's vacation time for JC. Back to Myrtle Beach he goes, starting September the 4th. Nope, they got you covered. And today the defensive guys are meeting with the media, and John Del Bianco and Hale and those guys will have some stuff up on all that here just a little bit on the Big Spur. Let you run on that note, my friend, but thank you so much. We're getting closer.
Yeah.
Getting closer.
I'll be in a better mood next week, guys. I promise so.
Nah, dude, we can see your face this week. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Whether you're frowning or smiling, as long as we can see it, that's all we care about.
You appear bright. Your aura is brighter, even though your inside is darker. How about that?
Thank you. I'm dark on the inside. I'm going to go listen to The Cure and light a candle.
Okay. Sounds good.
See you guys.
There you go. JC Shurburtt with TheBigSpur.com. Final time out of the afternoon. We're going to hit that now. When we return, it's a lot of Carolina today. I get it. If you're not a Gamecock fan, you might be a little bit bored by this, but hopefully you're not. Part 8. It's time for Carolina football with Keith Allsep, host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, right here, though, on our program, the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike two.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right, local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All three locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
It's time for Carolina football.
The rain breaks out in Columbia. The electricity here in Columbia, well, has been buzzing loudly all weekend. Left side, Jeffries got space and a touchdown. This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores!
1:36 on this Wednesday afternoon, final segment of the day, the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. There you go. Stokes VW.
Turn your mic on.
That's okay. JBandGoldwaterShow.com. Keith Allsep joining us, the host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, right here with Darren and I to take us home. What's up, my friend?
Hey, guys.
Darren, I told you
that's a great shirt you got on there. Oh, Jamie, too. Oh, yeah.
So
mama.
It's old school. It no longer exists, but when you get free swag with places you work with and they're like Under Armour shirts, you still rock them because they're comfortable and they're good.
Hey, it's time for Carolina football.
Almost. We're almost there. Certainly time for high school football, if they play any of the games around here, at least. It's been tough around these parts here lately.
They better. I'm supposed to call some of them. So,
what do you have a game this Friday?
No, we start next week. They haven't fully released the schedule or at all because they're not sure exactly what's going to happen. But we are scheduled to start next week, and the game we're supposed to do is at this point on.
All right, so when you say call, do you mean announce the game or officiate the game?
On TV.
Oh God, I'd be a funny official, wouldn't I? No. Like I'm basically I'm a play-by-play guy who just has fun being a nerd and producing the show too.
Yeah. See, I actually officiate the games.
So I wouldn't call that calling the games. I would call that officiating the games.
Yeah.
Same way public address announcers are not calling the game. When public address announcers say, "I'm going to be here calling," no, you're not. You're a PA announcer.
No, you're not. You're drinking while you're announcing a couple of names up there. Right. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Shut up. By the way, it's Hernandez, not Stevens.
Yeah.
And never say he's the 40, 45, the 50, the 55. Don't do that.
I try not to. I try not to go above 70 if I'm going to do that.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you get above 70, you're out. You out yourself.
Yeah.
You definitely had too much to drink if you get past the 65-yard line.
Stay under 70, and it's all good from there. All right, Keith. Here we're getting close. This is generally about the time. Well, a couple weeks back, I'd say right when the calendar turns to August, I start going back in the old bank of games. I guess I use YouTube for some of them now, but believe it or not, I got a handful of DVDs and I got games recorded from a bunch of years, and I think I might even have a tape or two. Believe it or not, I gotta have to go look for those. Do you do that? Do you go back and watch a bunch of old games? Do you watch all the wins, or do you watch losses too? What do you do to prepare?
I try not to rewatch a loss. That's not good for the blood pressure. But neither have a lot of the wins been very good for the blood pressure either, because quite frankly, there hadn't been enough of them the last 2 years. But, you beat Georgia, third ranked team in the country, because they keep playing the wrong quarterback. Then last year you beat Auburn and get to 2-2 for the first time in program history. And Will Muschamp just could not stand prosperity, because every time you got one of those turn the corner wins, man, it just went off the rails.
I don't understand that. I've never understood. Anyways, that's a whole. What is like your go-to season prep game? Like, I got to watch it every year. And you can't say Alabama 2010. You've been around this program a long time. Okay, the new generation is always, well, it's Alabama in 2010. Yeah, I get it. They beat number one that day. We've all seen it 1,000 times. There's got to be another go-to game.
How about 2012 at Clemson with
Dylan Thompson?
Dylan, the backup quarterback, going in there and throwing for over 3 bills, and on 3rd and 19, he rushed for 20 yards and a first down.
That's a good one. I'd say that's a pretty good one. That's the Swearinger game, too. You got the flag. By the way, that flag wasn't as funny when they threw it, because we thought, oh, my God, if they go score, they can beat us.
It was funny.
But it all worked out. So.
It was funny. You want to know why? That's how you knew when he hit that dude, and then Andre Ellington, right? Bruce Ellington's cousin from Berkeley High School in Moncks Corner, played for the great Jerry Brown, a great high school football coach and a great human being. But when he flexed on that guy and nobody from Clemson came over there, they didn't knock him on the ground. They didn't shove him. They didn't push him.
Nothing.
When that happened, you knew at that moment South Carolina owns Clemson regardless. Because on any football team, if you go back to that Miami brawl with South Carolina in 1987, when that dude concussed Todd Ellis, David Poinsett ran over there and knocked the crap out of that guy. And a brawl ensued, which South Carolina kicked their ass because they were not intimidated by Miami. Not in the Orange Bowl, not in the aura of the U, none of that. Now, South Carolina didn't win the game because of concussed Todd Ellis, who would have been out had there been a concussion protocol, stayed in and didn't know what day he was in and threw it to the wrong guy. But then again, you could argue there were a lot of days Todd knew where he was and he still threw it to the wrong guy.
I was about to say, he did that like 60 times in his career. So, it might have been more than that. Was it 70? No.
It was hopefully a record which lives in infamy.
Yeah, you don't want to break that record. Don said, I enjoy
one record you do not want to break at South Carolina.
Or even approach. Like, you don't even want to approach that record. You don't even want to cut that record in half. It was a bad record.
It was.
Don said, I enjoy watching Carolina. Georgia in 96 was there, and it was an amazing atmosphere that night. I was there that game, too. That was the old Diamond End Zones. It's also the night there's a clip from it, I think, still floats around a lot, that Deuce Staley broke a deep one into the south end zone. I'll tell you what, you want to know what game? I watch this game as much as I can, probably because I know a lot of these guys. but it was a fun night, and I was there 2005 in Knoxville when Josh kicked the field goal to win up there for the first time. There were a lot of big things that happened, though, in the game that night with Kenny and Sidney and Blake and all those guys.
Peyton Manning.
And Peyton Manning retiring his jersey. Yeah. It didn't end well for the Vols. And that's one of my favorite games that I've ever witnessed, just because of how it happened. And that was another one of those games that year, Keith, in 05. There's a handful. Obviously, this one, the Florida game probably stand out as much as any, that it was like, okay, yeah, Steve Spurrier's really actually changing things around here. Like we just went to Knoxville and won, and then we beat Florida at home, and that never happened. None of that crap ever happened, but started happening.
Yeah, I mean, it did. I mean, I had Langston Moore on my show earlier in the week. Langston's one of my all-time favorite Gamecocks, a low country guy, James Island High School. And for all the great things Lou Holtz did, he never beat Tennessee or Florida. Now, there were some in 2000 and 2001, those losses to Tennessee were crushing defeats. They're just inexplicable plays that happen that you just don't expect to happen. And then Tennessee just melted that clock away and scored with like less than 50 seconds to go to win in Columbia. And then the next year in Tennessee, you're in the T formation down there on the goal line and you score every time. Every time you get in the T formation, and Albert Hainsworth stepped over Cedric Williams and stopped the guy on fourth down, and we didn't win, and they came over there and waved that damn Tennessee flag in the whole Carolina section's face to rub it in. It was just crushing. And then, Florida in 2000, Watson blocks 3 punts. You're up big, and all of a sudden they fake a punt and throw it off a guy's helmet, and another guy catches it, and it turns into a first down. And it was just all downhill after that. And in 2001, I think Lou Holtz probably had pneumonia. Game days there, blackout.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
Rex Grossman and the head ball coach just absolutely obliterated South Carolina. And so, beating Georgia, no problem. Beating Clemson, check. Beating Ohio State twice, check. A lot of things. But, man, Steve Spurrier in year one, we didn't beat Georgia. Beat them several times after that, though. But won at Tennessee in front of Peyton Manning because, let's face it, Steve Spurrier never lost a game to Peyton Manning, not as the head coach of Florida and not as the head coach of South Carolina, 1-0 when they retired his jersey up there. And then he's like Urban Meyer, took my job. They wanted to see my resume. I told them, look in the damn trophy case. That's my resume. Click. Next phone call. Hey, Mike McGee, I am coming to South Carolina. Click. That was it.
73, by the way, the number of Todd Ellis career interceptions.
73. That's right.
I knew it was over 70.
Golly, poor,
49 touchdowns.
Yeah. 20. I think he had.
There are 49 touchdowns in his season now.
Yeah. Yeah. He had 20 of those interceptions just his first year.
Yeah. In fact, 22, 24, and 21 in his first 3 years.
Yeah.
It all worked out in his fourth year, though. That was one of the things I think that I know 2 years ago, Gamecocks went to Athens and won. Still can't believe that happened, but they did.
Neither can Kirby.
There's a lot of people who are still going, wait, what? But Steve didn't have any problem going on the road and winning games. I mean, he just didn't. You mentioned all those successes under Holtz. I was at the 04 game in Alabama. We went down there and beat them. 20-3, I think, was the final score that night at Bryant Denny. And matter of fact, I met the quarterback that night, Brody Croyle.
Mike Shula fired.
Yeah. And Brody Croyle's quarterback, he was hitting on my girlfriend at a party afterwards. I had no chance. If she wanted to leave me that night for him, there's nothing I could do about it.
You're absolutely right about that, Jamie. No doubt about it.
Yeah. She didn't leave me, though. I left her 3 years later. But Steve went on the road and beat Georgia. He went on the road, beat Tennessee. He went on the road, beat Florida, and did all those things. And hopefully some of that comes with Shane. Do you ever wonder how I think every place has this, except for Alabama, how the trajectory of your program could have changed if you would have just won one game? Do you ever circle one game? If we would have won that game.
1984 Navy.
Well, hold on. Besides the obvious, that game and the 2010 SEC championship game, okay, that was a nightmare. Besides, those are the two most obvious games. I'm talking about something that would be a little more discreet.
2011 Auburn.
There you go. Something like that.
2013 Tennessee. 2012 at LSU.
Who would they have played? I can't remember. The 20. Yeah, no. In 2011, if they would have gone to the SEC, if they beat Auburn that day, if Garcia wasn't sleeping or drunk, whichever one it was,
wasn't sleeping.
If they beat Auburn at Williams-Brice and they get to the SEC championship game, would they've seen? Was it LSU that was in the? It was LSU, so. Right? Okay, and then they would have played Auburn in 2013, and that Auburn team was vulnerable. They weren't. They got blown out by Oregon.
Yeah,
in the national championship game, if I remember correctly, right? I wonder if that Oregon team was really good.
I go back to 1980 Georgia as well, when Rogers was playing with a broken hand. They ripped the cast off. South Carolina at that point in the season, I believe, was 7-1. They had beaten Michigan at the Big House in front of about 109,000 people. They lost to Southern Cal the next week. That was the national televised game. There's only one back then, 41 years ago. South Carolina's driving for what would have been the winning touchdown. They win that game. They roll through the rest of their schedule. I hate to break it to Clemson fans. They were 5-5. When South Carolina lost that game at Georgia, that team left it on the field. I mean, they could barely beat the Citadel and had to have a Hail Mary in the rain to beat Wake Forest. But if South Carolina won that 1980 game, they would have been in one of the Big Four bowls, potentially as a 10-1 team playing for a national championship. Same thing in 1984. And then also, 2011, 2012, and 2013, you win any one of those games, you're in the SEC championship game, which means you're one game away from playing for the national championship.
I see Craig's comment. He said 2010 in Kentucky. I remember that night very well. That's the night Lattimore went out and Carolina was beating the crap out of them the week after beating Alabama. But even if they had won that game at Kentucky, that didn't change the fact that they were going to go to the SEC championship game and play Auburn. They still had to go to the Swamp and beat Florida. And they would have still played Auburn in the SEC championship.
And they would have still gotten their ass kicked by Arkansas because that was Ellis Johnson's kryptonite, Bobby Petrino.
Yeah, that was the 2010 season. I think people 2010 and 2014 bookend that 33-6 record, Keith, in 11 through 13. But I mean, to Craig's credit here, he brings up that Kentucky game. There's no reason they should have lost that Kentucky game at all.
Agree.
No reason. Shouldn't have lost the Auburn game that year.
Agree. All CC Whitlock has to do is just fall down or run out of bounds. You intercepted the ball, run out of bounds. Instead, he tries to be a hero. And Philip Luxenkirchen, who was the clutch player for Auburn, not only did he recover his own fumble in the end zone to win the game, but he stripped the ball from CC Whitlock, and Auburn got the ball back.
Right. And we turned it over 4 straight times in the fourth quarter. 2 picks, 2 fumbles when Connor came in.
No, that was that's 20. I'm talking about that's 2011. You're talking about 2010 at Auburn in the first month of the season before they were really Auburn, because Clemson should have beaten them. They dropped Kyle Parker missed a dude wide freaking open in the end zone that would have won that game. And then South Carolina had every opportunity in the world to beat Auburn. And, then Auburn became Auburn, thanks in large part to the SEC deciding, well, we don't care that Cam Newton's dad got $190,000.
That's
we're
right.
Still going to let him play because they just beat Alabama. And, we're going to let him play because they could win the national championship.
Yeah, and they did. Cheating damn Cam Newton. That's the night on the plains that night when he got up and did the whole throat slit thing I was standing there with Pat DeMarco's dad. He'd tell you all about it. I was like, yeah, I knew I didn't like him. Now I definitely don't like him. Still to this day don't like him. So those two, and then in 2014, Keith, you're talking about 3 games, 2 touchdown leads in the fourth quarter that they blew them because their defense was non-existent. And that was a record-setting offense, the best offense in the history of the school in 2014 under Dylan Thompson. You think like if you could just act like all the other teams, when you're leading by 2 touchdowns, win the game. When you're beating the brakes off of Kentucky in Lexington in 2010, just because Lattimore gets hurt, don't stop running your offense. Just keep playing. Don't turn it over 4 times in the fourth quarter. The little things. Who knows what could have happened with this program?
I think I figured this out. The long-running thing I've been trying to figure out about Gamecock fans and how you just keep coming back for more, even though you're getting smacked in the face so often, you're getting the times confused as you're trying to discuss it between yourselves. So I've figured this out. You guys can laugh at the pain, and that at least keeps you around because you can go back and laugh at your pain and just keep on coming back for more. So you do have a good sense of humor as a group, even though sometimes you get volatile.
So can we rename this like Dazed and Confused?
Yeah.
That's right.
What it is?
We need to get JC in here though. But it makes the sweet moments all that sweeter though. That's the thing about being a fan of this fan base.
And more memorable because you only have like 5 of those and you got about 1 billion of the others that you confuse.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's South Carolina football in 3 words or less.
Yeah, pretty much. And to Craig's point, that 2010 game at Kentucky, Keith, that's another one I remember like it happened last night. I mean, Lattimore literally, I think he ran for like 212 yards or something in the first half with 3 touchdowns. And then we turned the lights on in the second half, and they turned the lights on, we turned them off. It's like they didn't even bring the offense out.
Atrocious defense. I mean, it was like they didn't even know what they were. I mean, it's kind of like Will Ferrell's mom in Wedding Crashers. I never know what she's doing back there. Well, clearly that secondary never knew what they were doing back there in the second half of that game, because there were guys that were just wide freaking open all the time, running and catching touchdown passes.
What was the kid's name at Kentucky that
Randall Cobb.
It was Cobb, right? Yeah, that's right. I knew it was somebody who was still in the league. It was Randall Cobb. I mean, that was embarrassing.
It was.
Yeah, that's okay. Keith, we have better times on the horizon. Can't you tell?
Well, yeah. I mean, the first week of practice, your starting cornerback hits the transfer portal and you let somebody step on your starting quarterback's foot in a drill.
Yeah. It's Carolina football
coming.
Carolina football in a nutshell, man. Hey, but I did talk to JC. So, he's coming to Columbia for the Kentucky game. You're coming to Columbia for the Kentucky game. I'll be up there all weekend. Maybe we'll hang out and sit behind a train or something.
I mean, that could be dangerous.
I might hop on that train and never come back. Where are you headed, West? I'm okay.
I think Wes is going to be there too. I had him on my show today, and there'll be probably 50 to 100 or more my VIP patrons in the town hall tailgate.
Where's that going to be?
Still a location to be determined.
Okay. Well, you did it a couple years ago at the Loose Cockaboose. I talked to Justin the other day. He actually called me. So
yeah,
if you need something, let me know.
The only problem with having it down there, and I love those guys, that's right next to where my guy that I come to the games with, he parks there across the street from there in that big covered thing. They call it the football club or something. It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Basically, if you don't park down there, you got to walk all the way across and then all the way down past the condos, and it's a trek. For instance, if you park over by the state or in the farmers market, but I love it there, and I'd love for them to host us again. No doubt about it. Great food. They take care of you at the Loose Cockaboose, man. I love that place.
Yeah, they're good
they
people.
Have great Bloody Marys for noon games as well. Tremendous.
Well, I haven't looked at the rest of the SEC schedule just yet, but I'm kind of hoping it's not a noon game for Kentucky. I'm hoping we get a 7 o'clock call.
Hopefully it's like 7 or 7:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have a great time at that tailgate if it's a 7:30 game, brother. You can count on that.
I think so. Well, on that note, we're going to let you run. But before we do you have anything coming up on the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, or are you just going to take a break for a while?
No, I mean, I think there's this thing called football season that's coming up. In fact, Jamie Bradford will be joining me tomorrow on the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. And then Friday,
JP,
we'll have the venerable grizzled veteran, Phil Kornblut.
Oh, wow. What are you doing why do you want me a part of this thing, man? You got all these superstars surrounding you. I saw Wes was just on it. You don't need me in there.
No, dude, you are a hidden gem, Jamie. And I love being able to actually interview you a little bit. And maybe one day I can get Darren, because then I'd actually know what his voice actually sounds like.
Well, I'm not going to give you a whole lot of Gamecock history on the Locked on the Gamecocks pod, but I'm happy to come on and talk about something.
Awesome.
Yeah, we could get
Jamie, I jest. I mean,
go for it.
You are my guy.
No, I'd plug Darren in there. Let him run all your patrons off with his Penn State stuff.
Yeah, we can't do
if
that.
You want a program with tradition, and I'm happy to be there to help you.
So I got to say, football season's good for business. We've had close to 15 new or returning. So welcome home, welcome back home, patrons. A lot of people are upgrading to our VIP membership because they get the Tuesday night Garnet and Black Town Hall, and that is like our family. That's our Gamecock family. And last night, I think our show lasted probably about an hour and 5 minutes, and then overtime, which is not recorded.
Yeah.
I think that was another 40 minutes. And we're still, last year, it's just a lot better when you don't have the fear of actually being recorded. You can cut it loose and have a good time, and you don't have to worry about somebody listening to that part of the podcast while they're taking their 7-year-old to school the next day.
Yeah. Until somebody leaves the recording part on. Everybody's exposed. But that's okay. That never happened.
This week is Gamecock Central's week. They got the kickoff
Yep.
party on Friday. Wes plugged it. A lot of great guests. Wish I could be there. I told Wes, I was like, look, in 1980, the day South Carolina beat Michigan, I went to Athens to watch the Bulldogs play TCU. They had this freshman named Herschel Walker. I don't know if you guys know who he is or not.
I've heard of him.
He could be a Senate candidate in Georgia.
Yeah.
In 2022. But at any rate, that's back. Sanford Stadium was a shell of itself, and they had these things called the railroad tracks.
Yep.
And we're walking past these guys, and there were at least 5 empty cases of beer cans in the back of that truck along with their bodies. And they woke up.
Started barking.
and they wanted to know what day is it. We said, man, it's Saturday. They had been passed out since Thursday.
Oh, wow.
And they just rolled out.
Georgia fans?
Stale beer smell. Yeah. And we were too close for comfort because we could smell it. And they just walked on up and stood on the big trestle thing and watched the game. Didn't even have to pay for it.
These are Georgia fans, right?
Yeah.
Woke up drunk, started barking. Nothing's changed.
Well, they just wanted to know what day it was, and
it's a fair question. If you slept for multiple days, I'd want to know.
Yeah.
How do you get drunk to sleep through a whole day? How do you get that drunk?
That's basically like being pickled, I guess.
Coming up on episode 9 of It's Time for Carolina Football.
How to get drunk enough to sleep for 2 days.
Does anybody remember 63-17? I'll tell you exactly how you get drunk enough to sleep through 2 days.
Look, I left that game. I was at that game.
Yeah, me too. I got a great story
about that game. I got
up
and left that game in Columbia, and I was back in Greenville before the game was over.
Yeah.
That's how pathetic it was.
Oh, it was a tough night. I left that game early too, but that's the end of my story.
Yeah.
Keith, on that note, we're going to let you run, but I will, I guess I'll be hearing from you tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Can't wait. Cannot wait. Darren, you got extra work to do in the morning. I'm going to be hanging out with Keith for a while.
All right.
Fired up, ready to go.
Yep. All right. Thank you, man.
All right. Thank you.
Yes,
appreciate you guys.
Always.
Have a great rest of the week.
You too, man.
Keith Allsep, the host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast and other drunken stories. Do more of that next week. Thanks to JC and Keith. What do we have tomorrow? David Shelton. Boy, we're going to get an update on the high school stuff tomorrow. I'm looking forward to this. We got Scott Glaze tomorrow as well, and I think we got a couple other little nuggets planned for you. We're rolling right along here. Looking forward to that. Thanks to Darren. Thanks to all of you. We hope you have a rain-free, wonderful Wednesday afternoon, wherever you may be. No more rain, please. Asking for my grass blades.
Dude, it woke me up at like 4:30 today. I've been awake since then.
We lost power for a quick minute. It all came back, though. For Darren, I'm Jamie. See you tomorrow at noon on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.